Flight of Nova easily has one of the best flight models of any space game, and easily perhaps among the most realistic. Now, I've spoken about this game multiple times on the channel, and I'd highly recommend you check the game out. It's available right now as a free demo, just for you to get a feel for it, whilst the full thing is priced around about £25. At any rate, the game has just received a massive update. The update is called Auken and Gaba. Yes, a very strange name, but those are the names of the two massive new orbital stations that have been included in the game. Station Auken is a massive station with 22 docking ports, hangars and interiors. Meanwhile, the other station, Gaba has 24 docking ports. Now, flying around in the Flight of Nova, especially once you're up in orbit and around these massive space stations, is really interesting, and that's due to the Newtonian flight physics. The complexity of the physics make pretty much everything a challenge, and that of course includes docking, where you've got to be really careful not to damage your ship and to make sure you get all the docking components correctly aligned. The latest update also comes with a new region map called Mendel, and there's 26 brand new missions here for this particular map. Additionally, there's a new training mission called Building a Tunnel. And yes, there's now 4 new types of service buildings which you can actually fly inside of. And I think this is going to really add to the overall sensation of scale that the game has. Other than that, there's a whole bunch of other nice quality of life updates, as well as general changes and improvements to the overall game. The patch notes include 28 different additions and fixes, improvements and changes to the game overall. So yeah, pretty good. That might not sound like the hundreds you perhaps used to with other games, but keep in mind this is an indie title. Now, in case you've never actually heard of Flight of Nova or don't know what to expect from it, well, it's a space simulation game, and this is very true to the term simulation. It actually simulates pretty much everything. The game transports you to a distant mining colony world where you set up as a pilot of a spacecraft. Now, what's really interesting about the game is the focus on transport and search missions. Steering clear of combat elements, there's no combat in this game, thankfully, which means it's free to fully focus on the flight aspect of things. Now, what I've found, as I've said before, the most impressive aspect about Flight of Nova is the realistic flight dynamics. The handling of mass, inertia and zero-G manoeuvre really does feel incredibly immersive, and it's very challenging as well. I've lost count of the amount of times I've either smashed my ship on the landing pad, orbital stations, or even crashed it against the atmosphere. But at the same time, the game is very much a learning experience, and from that point of view, it can be quite forgiving. I liken it to Kerbal Space Program in many ways, because if you have played that game, then you'll certainly be familiar with some of the orbital mechanics that are included in the game. In fact, I'll link a video on the screen right here where you can actually see how the orbital mechanics actually work and how you have to use them in order to get both into orbit as well as exit orbit. Now, navigating this Earth-sized planet without faster-than-light travel really does mean dealing with realistic travel times, and that includes when you're down on the landing pad having to wait for rendezvous times if you want to actually meet with certain space stations or other bodies up in space. It really does add a whole load of authenticity to the game. Also, you'll find you'll have to manage heat shields for atmospheric entry and mastering complex docking procedures in Flight of Nova that we saw slightly early on, and this is pretty thrilling. Once you've gone out of your way to collect some cargo, spent a whole bunch of time collecting things, it can be real tricky to make sure you correctly and effectively dock. If you mess things up at that point, it can be, well, a bit of a setback. Now, the game offers a variety of different spacecraft. You've got the freighter and a single stage-to-orbit vehicle as well, each with unique flight characteristics. In terms of gameplay, you've got the free flight mode, which you can do pretty much what you want in there. There's map mode, and you'll need to unlock the different maps as you progress through the game. And then there's the rogue mode. All in all then, there's plenty to do here, and the amount of activity keeps increasing every time the developer adds a new update to the game. For me though, the real primary focus of the game really is the flight simulation, and there's nothing else out there that really rivals it. Whilst there are other titles that do have full space flight simulation, there's nothing that really does so in the sci-fi manner that Flight of Nova does. So if you're interested in this, do check out that demo you can find on Steam. Alternatively, have a look at the 2 other previous Flight of Nova videos I've made in the past. One of them talks about atmospheric re-entry, and the other is about the full-on orbital mechanics. Both should give you a good insight as to what to expect from the flight simulation. You should be able to see both of those on the screen right here. Do check them out, and I'll catch you all next time.